Steph Cook is the member for Cootamundra. Great to be chatting with you again on the Flow Network.
It's fantastic to be with you, Ricky.
Now, Steph, there's been today the announcement by the state government that restrictions are easing for residents of New South Wales on the COVID pandemic front. Good news for your local community?
It's fantastic news as we head towards Christmas, only a few days away now. And yeah, look, I think it's a great relief to people far and wide. But there are people in our communities that still are a little bit nervous about the spread of the virus, and especially with the emergence of a new variant now. So I think it's sort of a timely reminder to just to make sure that we continue to do the basics around social distancing. You can still wear your mask and in fact it's encouraged if you find yourself in a situation where you can't socially distance. By all means, wear your mask and practice really good hand hygiene. And look, people right across the Cootamundra electorate have really answered the call in relation to getting vaccinated. Almost all of the LGAs are now double vaccinated to 95% or more, which is fantastic news, Ricky. So we've really set ourselves up, to live with the virus, in my view. But I also acknowledge that there will be people, particularly those who are elderly in our communities or frail or who have underlying health conditions, who will be a little bit nervous by these easing of restrictions. But if we continue to work together, then, we will be able to live with this virus and go back to, a more normal way of life.
Yeah, there had been some apprehension. I think Joe McGurr, the MP for Wagga Wagga, had said maybe don't move so fast on easing restrictions on people coming to regional New South Wales. But now with the vaccination rate like that, there's good reason to have people touring and holidaying and visiting family in the regions again.
Oh, absolutely. And, it's not, I think, not just about welcoming tourists, but of course we always love to do that. It's great for local businesses. It's great for the overall vibe for our towns. And of course the economic benefit that it brings is fantastic. But it's just also those basics about families being able to be reunited after, in some cases, a couple of years between when they've, been able to last see family members for different reasons. So I think it's an important and overall a welcomed move, but we just need to keep doing the right thing to the best of our ability. And as a community, we've already shown that we can really pull together and get through some really difficult challenges and some difficult times. But going forward, we should be able to do the same, I think.
Well, and speaking of things that'll be well received, and on the health front, Temora Hospital, massive funding injection there that you were part of the announcement recently.
Yes, I've just recently spent time in Temora with the Deputy Premier, the Honourable Paul Toole, and I was very proud to make the announcement of $80 million that the New South Wales Government will be investing into redeveloping the Temora Hospital. This is a facility that was built in the 1940s, so it's over 80 years old now. And it's reached that point where there is nothing further we can do in relation to refurbishing or refitting the existing building to bring it up to standards to meet the provision of modern health care. So it's at that point really where a new hospital is required. That will be, I think disappointing is too strong a word, but there will be people in Temora who have known this hospital their whole life, and they'll be feeling quite nostalgic about that hospital. It is much loved, but I think overwhelmingly people are very excited for the future and what this announcement means, both in relation to the provision of healthcare and health services, but also for the economic and other benefits that will flow into the community and indeed into the region as a result of this announcement.
You mentioned Paul Toole, your leader, recently. You were with him. Were you at the Wagga Showgrounds when he's made the announcement about shows recently?
No, I wasn't with him for that announcement, but that too is a very, very exciting announcement for our country shows, and the Cootamundra electorate is huge on shows. We have 25 shows around the region over the 12-month period, a handful in the autumn and the majority of them in spring. And, we have a strong agricultural tradition in this part of the world, and those shows have been hit really, really hard through the last 2 years with COVID. Almost all of them have been cancelled for one reason or another over that time, some with very, very short notice. And it's really important that we now wrap around those committees and wrap around those towns and organisations to get these shows back up and running to ensure that the future of agriculture is strong right through New South Wales and through the region.
Well, I'm reliably informed from the press conference about that at Wagga Showground. Paul Toole said he was going to eat 190 Chiko rolls getting around to each of the shows. Are you going to eat 25 Chiko rolls at your shows?
Oh, there is no way I could match that. Not a chance. But to be honest, I could probably go a bag of fairy floss at every single show that I attend. I've got that sweet tooth, Ricky.
That's the energy boost you probably sometimes need getting around the electorate. I wanted to touch base about how the farmers are going in your electorate as well. There's been some wet weather and some delays with harvest, and even flooding possible impacts as well. How are the farmers going in the electorate of Cootamundra?
Yes, so the harvest this year will be mixed, depending on exactly where you are located in the electorate. I think overall it's fair to say that yields are down. We had a cracking start to the season, really up to about 5 weeks out from harvest, and then we started to get rain events that have really in places played havoc with our harvest, whether it be flooding, particularly in the north of the electorate. So we've had a lot of crops completely wiped out along the Lachlan Valley system. With all of that flooding that's occurred down through Cowra and Forbes and further downstream. So for those farmers, it's a very, very, very difficult time. And then across the rest of the electorate, we've had sort of rain at I guess, not the best of times, and in some places it's made it difficult for farmers to get on farm with machinery to get the harvest off, and overall it just has that impact on quality when it comes to harvest. But certainly farmers right across, particularly across the southern area of the electorate at the moment, are going hell for leather 24/7 to get the crops in. We do have a lot of heavy vehicles, a lot of grain trucks on the roads at the moment. And so if I could digress just briefly to, just to remind people, particularly if they're travelling east-west through the electorate or even north-south down through the Newell Highway, or whether they're using the Sturt or the Burley Griffin Way, there are a lot of trucks around at the moment, and I'd encourage people to bear that in mind, to drive to the conditions, and particularly be quite careful as they approach level crossings.
And farmers seem to have had, that's an important community safety announcement, by the way, but farmers seem to have had a generally good amount of support from the federal and state governments, the disaster announcements and funding support from the federal government, and then this baiting assistance from the state government regarding mice. Any indication yet the mice are starting to pop their head up again?
We've had the odd sighting here and there, but nothing too sort of catastrophic at this time. Certainly not as we saw, several months ago, which is that's heartbreaking. Those sorts of scenes. But yeah, look, certainly from a state government perspective, and I know the federal government has been supportive as well. But we've had to support farmers in one way, shape, or form since the drought, some sort of 4 years ago. So our support for farmers now, for drought, it was $4.5 billion in New South Wales alone, and we've continued to support them as other disasters have hit in subsequent years. So we'll always continue to ensure that our farmers have that support, because their output and their presence in our communities is absolutely vital.
Well, Steph, there is plenty more we could talk about. We'll have to do that in the new year. But before we go, you started talking about travellers on the roads and Christmas period coming up. Have you got a message for our listeners coming into the Christmas season?
I think my overriding Christmas message, Ricky, is for everyone to have a wonderful, lovely and safe Christmas. It's been a very, very difficult 2021 for a lot of people and a lot of families. And so it would be my hope for everyone that we can spend time together as family and friends, and just slow down a bit, enjoy that time, and sort of get fully refreshed and re-energised for a fantastic 2022.